afternoon, good evening, where you are across the known world, and welcome to another amazing interview with the Crown Between Two Roses. I am Countess Beatrice.
And I'm Countess Altani. Welcome. And we have with us today, Jarl Alfar of Attica. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Good nobles, we come here together in the spirit of friendship, deepening of our skills, sharing of our knowledge, and a shared interest in the search to find truth through experimental archaeology and historical inquiry. It is in this context that I, Altani, on behalf of my kingdom, acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which we gather. We recognize their continuing connection to land and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and the elders from other communities who may be here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you and welcome, Alfar. One of the big things that we do like to ask about on our show is your origin story. So can you tell us how you became involved in the SCA?
How did I get involved? Well, it started off with the Dungeons and Dragons game, and I suspect that's the same for many people. During one of those games that I was running at the university up at Newcastle, I met a guy called Simon Markichev, who was one of our princes later on. But anyway, he told me about the society, and it sounded all pretty good, but I didn't know him particularly well. So I said, okay, well, nice to know that stuff. I'll chase it up. As it was, I was chasing a particular girl at that time, who was very much a churchy, as we used to say. And basically, I went to church with her. And that seems odd if you know me. And so I chased the girl, right? Well, that didn't work out, especially when I laughed through the baptism, but don't worry about that. It was an adult baptism. It was strange to me. I'm from more of an Orthodox background. And then I saw Simon there, and I went, hey, Simon, are you here? And he goes, yeah, why are you here? Oh, I'm also chasing a girl. Oh, cool. And he goes, hey, did you go? No, bummed out. Okay. And then he goes, it reminds me again, there is this club up in Hamilton in Newcastle. We do fighting there. I told you about it before. And I go, yeah, I'll gladly come along. So the following Sunday, I went to my first fighter practice. And I was enamored. I fell in love with the entire concept of people getting fully dressed up in armor and basically learning the craft of fighting each other with sword or axe or spear. That's where I met one of my the great people in my life, Sir Damon of York, at that time, and also the guy who would be later my knight when I was his squire, Sir Elfin of Mona, or these days Duke Elfin of Mona. I think he's a bit unknown around the known world. So yeah, that first day they put me into armor, which was 2 sizes too small. The first person I fought was Elfin. Did know Elfin from a bar of soap. Did my very best to hit him. He did his not so best to hit me a lot. And I went, hey, cool. And they said, there's a pel, there's a stick, now practice. I went, done. And that's exactly what I've been doing since the year, what was it? Late 1986.
Wow.
And fighting has been an essential or integral part, I suppose, of who I am. So that's how I joined the society. As for the name, I initially was going to call myself Tiberius because I studied classics. So I was very much influenced by ancient Greece, ancient Rome. But it seemed a bit, I don't know, over the top using a name like that. But I was very much heavily influenced by my reading. I read a lot as a young adult, even as an adult. Lord of the Rings, Conan the Barbarian, all that type of thing. And one of the things that always attracted my eye was the idea of elves. So thinking about names, thinking about background story, I discovered that in Norse or Saxon, bit of both, my name Alfar, spelled A-L-F-A-R, actually means elves. So I went, cool, I'll take that up. And because I was still very much into the whole ancient world type of thing, I decided to name myself Alfar of Attica. That is the land that surrounds Athens today, as it did in classical period. As for my first persona, it was certainly a Viking trader who, my father was a Viking trader. He came down to the Mediterranean, which is what you expect. And essentially, how would I put it? He called me Alpha after that. And because I was born in Attica, he said that my name now would be Alpha of Attica. It was my attempt at sort of linking up to the past. And currently, the year is 1021. So I always worked it back 1,000 years. So whatever historical events happened that time, Manzikert, all that type of thing sort of linked up. So it's no surprise my first persona was, even though it had Viking and ancient Greek backgrounds, was Byzantine. I attempted doing Byzantine for a while.
Really? Oh my gosh, I never knew that about you, Alpha.
Yeah, I thought about it. But like anything, when you've been long enough in the society, you evolve, you change. And at the age of whatever I was, 18, 19, I didn't truly know that much about things in general, especially historical periods, even though I studied history for quite a few years at that point. Being a member of the society, you're exposed to many people, many ideas. And basically, I think like anybody else, you go, that's a great idea. That's something I didn't know. I think I'm going to incorporate that as part of who I am. And sometimes you just go, that's pretty, and I'll try that out. So as you know, I tried Lanchneck for a little while, even Tudor, and I never went back. It was all this late period business. It was way too complicated. The clothes, too many pieces. My God, straight tunic or something. That's all I wanted. And as you can see, this is still what I prefer. So that's my background story in short. I don't know. How far would you like me to go? I could battle this for hours.
So obviously your love of the classical period has come through in your time in the SCA.
Yeah.
How has that influenced you? Obviously with your name and your backstory, but how has that influenced you in the SCA?
My passion for the classical period.
Hmm.
Well, as you know, as maybe others do, I took that across into one of my reigns in particular. So in the last reign that I did with my wife, we did a full-on ancient Greek reign. I think it was the first one of its type in Lochac, though it'd been done many times before in the rest of the known world. I gotta say, that was made possible only by the fact that I learned how to go about it. I learned where to get things that I needed to make it happen. I learned a lot to get to that particular point. How did it influence me? I suppose it sort of, it's a funny thing because what I do mundanely is I'm a high school teacher and I also teach ancient history. So I'm never too sure with myself, did the SEA influence me to like ancient history more, or did ancient history teaching it make me want to do it more in the SCA? So what can I say? It's influenced me a lot in terms of building some structures. I don't know if I can show you, I can share an image or not, but I built a gate, a temple gate at the full scale, practically. My household cursed me every time we had to set it up every year for festival. But it was a passion. It was a passion that I built that gate. It's to sort of represent, I suppose, my love for the ancient period. And luckily enough, I've met people on my journey in that regard, and who have also followed in my footsteps. Ariston would be a later king of Lochac, and he too had a Hellenic reign. I was more of the classical. He was a Hellenic. If any of you know the difference, you'll understand that. And there have been other people who've also felt inspired enough to get their own kits and sort of do the same thing. I believe these days, when we have summer events, a lot of people, especially the heat of summer, like doing ancient Greek or Roman because they can see the value in it. Wearing Tudor in Australian summer is probably not the most ideal thing for most people. Even 12th century English is not ideal during Australian summer, but Greek and Roman certainly is. But that's just one part. I mean, I've also done for a very long time, also done Norse or Viking, came out with the whole face paint before it ever came on the movie, on the TV show, The Vikings. We did that. I came up with a Norse unit. I like to think I came up with the first Norse unit again in Lochac, where I basically convinced everyone, right guys, round shields, center grips, spangons, we're going to do this, and cloaks. I always loved cloaks. And that's not because I want to be a superhero, but just cloaks are cool, right? So, yeah, we did that also for a long time. And as part of that, you know, my household at that time, we built probably, I think it was 6 or 7 A-frame tents at the time. We went for it hard. But as I said, things evolve. Nothing stays the same. People move on. I look at new things and go, hey, that's not too bad. And I start sort of dabbing my hand into it. But life is a little bit more, how would I put it, engaged. Now having a baby, a child, and his name is Theoden. If anyone knows their Lord of the Rings, you should know exactly where that comes from. So at the moment, whilst he's still pretty young, I guess I do a little bit less, except click and buy my new helmet or my new sword or anything else like that, which I have been acquiring lately whilst during Siege.
So you started off in Newcastle, which is known as Mordenvale.
Yep.
Where did you go from there?
So I went there to do my my degree in history, I should say, and then I did my diploma of teaching there as well. So that was 4 years. So I then moved back to Sydney in 1990, and yeah, joined Roney, the Barony of Roney, where I've been pretty much ever since. And what can I say? Roney's been a great place. I think Roney is a great place for the SCA. We have a lot of diverse opinions about things, and I don't mind that actually. I think diversity is part of the key to what we do. And I've come across some really, really great people in that time who I've seen do some really wonderful things, who have been real people of action. I've got to admit, I really like people who do things and make things happen. That's important to me because that way you can create the dream, live the dream, make the dream for others, so that they too can maybe follow in your footsteps, or they just create their own, I suppose, version of the dream. Something to inspire, I think is the word. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to, I'm very curious about your lineage. You are a Knight of the SCA and a Pelican, and you have reigned as Prince multiple times and as King.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you ascribed to Duke Elfin.
Correct.
Of Mona.
Yep.
I know, and you do have a very strong household across across Lochac.
House Attica. Yep.
House Attica has how many knights have been created under from your lineage?
I was looking at the tree not very long ago. That's a good question. I think about directly from me, I think it's been 6. But don't quote me. I think it's 6. And from that again, I think it's another 6, 7, 8. So maybe going down the tree, we're talking about 13, 15 different people. So that's just, I guess, a testimony of how long I've been here. But as I said, I've come across some really great people. Some people of great inspiration. All those people who had been my squires and became knights, in my opinion, were good people, great people. That one person who's no longer with us, Gawain, he was very good. He was, how would I put it, an inspiration to others. And he and his brother, Berenger, who also was my squire and became a knight, the thing that I admired most about them was the fact that they were people who did things, made things happen. And then there is, as I said, I don't remember one name, but Duke Gui, who has been, how would I put it, he's been one of the mainstays of the household. I think he's been one of the mainstays of the barony and one of the mainstays of the kingdom. He crosses many lines. And like myself, he is quite active as well. And so is Berenger, I think. But he's had a child, so it's also a bit busy, I guess. Then there's been Sir Jock, who has also deserved his knighthood. But like a lot of us, parenthood comes in and takes our time away. And I know I'm going to forget somebody, and that's just embarrassing, isn't it? Ariston, I'm not going to forget Ariston. Ariston, he too has been an inspiration. He is one of the key people for the barony. He had his reign. Lankin, one of my newest knights. Well, not my knight. He is his own knight, but squire's become a knight. He's the first person who, out of all my squires, became knighted with the pole arm, and that's not too bad considering I hardly ever fight with pole arm. But he comes from a great lineage too. His father, Sir Torg, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. Lincoln had been born into the society. I remember him, this is how long I've been around, when he was still a baby. And later he'd become my squire, and then later I would see him to be knighted. They're proud moments. And to go through that family tree, I think Berenger with Sir Gabriel or Duke Gabriel, who has been a machine in terms of churning out knights. I think he's produced like 6 different knights himself in that time, and that's his story to tell after that. But he is definitely someone who does things. So on that side of things, yeah. But look, I put that down to people finding, how would I put it? Family trees like this are created by people who are generally of like-minded, who are like-minded and who like doing things. And Alfred was my knight. Sir Damon of York was my foster knight. Alfred left for Drakenvale early in my time as squire, though I still had contact with him. It was Damon of York that basically, how would I put it, mentored me through that period of time, the highs and the lows, through the whole thing. And anyone who knew him, I think, always felt blessed by knowing such a person. And he too also had people, squires knighted after him, some great people, like Sir Ragnar, Loyola, Eves. So and how would I put it? And Aidwood, sorry, I won't forget Aidwood. It's been a very big tree. I only consider myself as not the trunk, but just as one of the branches, but the big branch, if you like, of that certain tree.
Definitely produced some amazing people from that line, yes. And also now you're a pelican too.
I've been a pelican for a while, yes.
Yes.
As I said,
Yes,
like doing things. So my look on a very local level, I've been always there helping out the new fighters, training, armoring them. But I suppose in that regard, Roni Festival, was always my baby, I suppose. Even though I didn't create the event or anything like that, it had been going well before me. I saw the great potential in there, and I suppose I gave myself the task of finding whatever means I could to make it grow. So I've been involved with festivals since 1996, I think it was, or 97, where I started as an officer for, in fact, one of my squires at the time who was running festival, he got me into it. And then I went from that point on, okay, I'm interested into that. I've been steward several times. I've been constable more time than I can even remember. And I've been marshal a few times, but generally I've been there in one shape or another in the festival organization for the last 20 years. A bit like the shadow that just slingers on the side and has something to say, or will do something if it needs to be said. If it needs to be said or done, I might stress. Yeah.
So in all your time in the SCA, how many reigns, principality and kingdom have you done?
8. I've done 8. 5 principality or 5 coronets and 3 crowns. The first one was back in 1994 with Princess Susanna. And then Angarat, who's my wife, we did a reign about 5, 6 years ago. Time moves fast sometimes. That would be the last time I've done a reign. And I probably still have it in me to do maybe a couple more, but I'm just looking for the right moment, I suppose.
Your first reign, I was just looking at canon law, and your first reign, you were unbelted.
Yes.
Did you find that different to the other reigns that you had done as an unbelted?
In a manner. I beat Sir Corin at the time, and he had been made a knight. I've definitely felt like the underdog, the person that no one particularly knew. I didn't have the reputation, anything like that. Sorry, just focus me again. What was the question again?
Did you find it different being an unbelted prince?
No, not at that time. I had an excellent support network at that time, and they gave me some very good advice, which led me through the reign. I mean, I made mistakes, as one invariably does when you're in a position of leadership, and there's a lot I didn't know, no, I didn't find that to be particularly a problem. Probably what was more of a problem, and this is shared by anyone who did a coronet, was the fact that we were a principality to a kingdom. Now, I'd love to be a Knight of the West. I'll put it straight out there. No two ways about it. It sort of ticked all the boxes in my Lord of the Rings checklist of bang. And the people who had come over, the kings that had come over, like Jade and Uther, they were great people, as many others. And I learned a lot from them. I listened a lot, I watched a lot, and I think the whole principality at that time picked up a lot. But in the end, when it came down to it, we were not completely independent. Okay, though we had set up our traditions and our customs, there was always that niggling feeling that even though you're a prince or princess, that if the crown wanted to pass a law without you knowing about it, it happened. If they decided to oppose you on some changes or something, it would happen. And I didn't appreciate that as much as I did when I actually became king. I'm not trying to boast, but I was the first king of Lochac. And when I was sitting down in a Pelican meeting, literally the first meeting after I'd been crowned, I had some persons there from the West Kingdom telling us, not deliberately, but telling us what to do in that particular meeting, or telling the order or the Pelican what to do. And in the past, that would have been a case of like, okay, you guys know best. And then it just clicked to me within the meeting that I had to shut that person down and remind them that they were a guest, and that no matter which way you pleaded it, we'll look at it on the facts, but the decision is exclusively that of the people who are members of the Kingdom of Lochac, and that's it. And I think that was the first time for me, and people came back to me later to tell me that's when they started to feel right, where Lochac is on its own path here. We are going down our own road, our own journey. So being unbelted at that point, no, because you knew there was always someone above you, right? But being in the coronet system, that had its complications. But I think that was more of an issue, actually, Beatrice, that we were a coronet and principality, sorry, and that was more of a challenge than being some unknown, unbelted dude who won a coronet tourney at that time.
How did you find being the first king of Lochac?
She took my question.
I'm trying to distract from the cat.
Fair enough. First king. There's a lot. There's a lot to that could be said. How did I find it? Was that the question exactly? I'm just trying to fix.
Yeah.
How did I find being first king? It was great. There is no question about it. I loved being king. But then I wouldn't have done 5 reigns as prince, right? Unless I liked doing reigns in the first place. But the funny backstory to this, before I even entered that crown tournament, the first one, is that I had no intention of fighting that first crown. We used to have a custom within Lochac whereby if you wanted to participate in a coronet tourney, you could literally tell the prince literally an hour before the tourneys began, and they would just add you to the list. Okay, and that happened a number of times. I even rocked up one Saturday and said, look, I'm coming here to fight coronet, fought coronet, won, and then yeah, that was it. But in this case, I had no intention, but I had Duke Jade, Duke Uther, plus a few other people come to me literally the night before the crown tourney and said that they believed that I was the man to do it, and that it would be not proper, and I think this is the part they emphasized to me, it would not be proper if I didn't participate. And at that time, I was feeling a little bit burnt by a number of things, and I guess I was just a bit tired, but I went, okay, fine. I participated in that crown tournament, and and I want to focus on that just a little bit. That crown tournament was somewhere between 70 to 80 people, which we have not equaled since. It was the longest tourney ever in my life, and probably the most physically, emotionally exhausting day. And by the end of it, though, I did say to myself, I deserved this. I won by right of arms. I was inspired by my consort at the time, and I'm going to do the best possible job. So when I did step up as crown, we endeavored to do what we believed was to do the right thing, and we literally visited every barony, shire, canton, any group that existed within Lochac at that time. I have no idea how much money was spent to get to that particular point, but we did a lot of traveling. Let me just say my teaching career did not benefit from this period of time. But that's okay. And the feedback I received after that was quite honestly overwhelmingly positive. And what was emphasized is that some people had their doubts about my ability to be the first crown at that time. And I think we always have doubts about anyone who takes up the crown the first time. You always have doubts about sometimes someone. But I had those same people come back to me later and tell me, and I think quite sincerely and in a genuine manner, how well a job that we had done. And it was that type of feedback that made it all worth it, and it made me feel inspired to go and do a second and later a third reign within Lochac. I hope that sort of answers your question.
No, thank you. So whilst on the throne, either principality or as crown, what has been your favourite moment?
My favourite moment.
That's a lot of times to think about.
Look, I've had, look, you can break it into categories. Alpha when in battle, when Alpha's overseas in battle, when Alpha's off in doing a rain and had too many drinks, but he has a wonderful guard who fills his tankard without him knowing it. Yep. There are so many different things. Look, favorite moment.
You don't just have to have one.
I get it. No. I just have to pare back what I need to think. I think a lot of people would acknowledge one of the things that people like doing is to give something to someone else. Okay. And in my time, in those reigns, I've had several different consorts, each of whom I did care for and still care for to this very day. And yeah, so when I was able to place the coronet or the crown on their head, or the wreath, just straight after the tourney, and making them princess or making them queen, I think it was those points where you might have seen a raindrop fall on my face. Let me put it that way. And yeah, those moments really stand clear in my mind, and I suppose it's one of the proudest things I've done in that regard. But look, I've been in countless activities from, as I said, the fights. I remember running out towards one of those old water pressure cannons, running right in front of it, literally within 5 foot of it, this is very young Alpha, and the thing fires off, but it misfires and it plops in front of me. And I went, that's a shame, and then killed like 5 or 7 people around me, including the crew. I got to admit, I was pretty happy with that. That was my early time. I remember leading in my first Penzig event, and this is where I got to thank Sir Gregory of Lochac, who convinced me to go to Penzig for the first time, and then taking our horde of Lochac fighters, numbering I think it was 8 or 10. And charging across the open field battle at Penzig, and where I think there was 2,000 or 3,000 aside, and Lochac was the point, and we went straight in. It felt like the real thing in terms of, like, we hit the line, mass confusion. My weapons were torn out of my hands. I got spun around 360 and 180 and then to the ground, but never got hit. Got back up, found myself completely weaponless. And then I realized something about Americans, which I always thought was true, but maybe it really did hit me true. Americans are bigger than me, right? I mean, seriously, they're wider and they're taller in particular, and I could hide behind them. That was a massive revelation. So when they're poking with the other guys on the other side, poking with their spears, and anyone who's ever fought at Penzig will understand spears are god over there. They often overshoot, and I had this wonderful job of like grabbing the spears as they shot past the person they're aiming for, and basically tugging them through our lines. And I got like 5 or 6 kills that way, and a lot of expletives on the way by the person's going, "Why did you have to do that?" I'm going, "Well, you have a weapon and I don't." It's things like that. I remember a Yule feast where Gawain and the household and myself, we built a Viking longboat and put wheels on it. It was around about 15, 18 feet long. It was clanker built too, I might add. And I'm not kidding, it was clanker built. It had a dragon's head at the top, and as part of a presentation, this is just for one presentation of food, right? One remove. I got also a mist machine. So we created mist into that hall, and then I had people inside the boat, and then we basically, using our feet, rolled the boat into the hall to present this one dish to the coronet at that time. And that was it. But damn, the whole experience was awesome. And that goes back to weapon, I don't. That just points out to, where do I get the idea like that? St. Florian's. Only a year before, I think it was, myself and Gui and Jock, we were up there. I fought in the tournament, the coronet tournament, which I won. And then they had some similar idea, but they had a girl who sang opera. People in Florian's might remember who she is, and an opera singer. And she came in and singing something, and it was quite spectacular. And I was like, wow. And I said to myself, I'm going to do something like that. Now, I didn't have an opera singer, but I could build a Viking longboat and wheel it into a hall. So that's what I mean. We get inspired by each other. And I remember that quite vividly. Look, there's lots of things, I suppose, but they're the fighting and the non-fighting type of things.
England has actually put in the chat, what has been your most immersive moment when you actually felt you were living history?
Okay, so I just saw the other question. The most immersive. Look, I like to think the combat, for me, combat is a big part of what I do in the society. The big fights at Penzig, the big fights that we have at Roni Festival, the confusion, how would I put it, the passion, the emotions rising up. It's like everyone forgets just for that moment of that, you know, we're in the 20th or 21st century, and we're caught up in that particular moment. You forget all else, and that's when you're sort of pushed into it. I suppose, this is a hard question, England. Actually, living history. I'll tell you what, I think what it's probably, I don't think I've ever thought that I was living history per se, but I do strive for it. I do still think about the things that I want to do to make, for example, a more of a period campsite, for example. Okay, and that provides me with motivation. There have been moments when we got close. I thought when Chris's SEA name, JC, that's it, and Gui wrote me ceremonies for the ancient Greek reign, and did it all based on the mythology. I thought that was also quite inspiring. That added a sense and a flavour that I think we needed in the SCA, where we basically were inspired from the things that we were supposed to be, replicating. And during that reign, I know the fact that I managed to convince, and I was looking at the photo, about 15, 20 people to wear Corinthian helmets, take their aspis or their hoplons out into war. And at that festival, the stewards were very kind to allow me to run some form of Olympic Games as part of the war, where we had tug of war, we had people throwing javelin competitions, we had people with a helmet and with an aspis running up and down doing relays. And then I suppose one of my fondest moments is, quite often you hear of some sort of feat of arms have to be performed, and I got inspired by Odysseus from the Odyssey, where I think there was a competition where you had to shoot an arrow through a number of axes, if I recall, and to prove that he was the one worthy to marry, I can't remember her name, his wife, Penelope, that's it. I should know this, but you know. So when we were calling to arms for people to declare who they're going to fight, I had two sides. I had Baron Mendoza and Baron Crispin from Roni and Politicopoulos, respectively, demanding that I join them, or requesting, I should say. So I remember this particular festival, I organised for a bow, several arrows for each of them. We set up a target, and this is during the middle of court, outside in the middle of the Roni Listfield, and we set the target up, and we said, all right, if the gods will it, you will aim and strike true on that target. And whoever strikes the target first has the support of the crown in this war that you have. I think Crispin shot the tent that was behind the target from memory. I don't know if he put a hole through it, because we weren't using blunts, combat blunts. We were using the other type of blunts. Sharps, I guess. And yeah, well, it had to be real, right? And then I think Mendoza, and I think they both had goes, and they kept missing. I chastised them, that's right, I remember now, for being bad archers. And they apologized, and they kept going until I think it was Mendoza who finally hit the target. And they said, so the will of gods have been decided. Prophecies are said. The royal forces shall be fighting with Roni in this war. And I suppose that was a great immersive moment where I could evoke all the different aspects, I suppose. I see another question up here.
Yeah, there's a couple that come through.
Yeah, I see it. Do you want me to do
So
those?
the one from Sarivkin is, what do you think the SCA has lost over the last decade that we should work to regain?
Okay. I do have an answer to that one.
Is it very blunt?
Am I the type that would provide a blunt answer? That's the beauty of being early period. What do we think we've lost over the last decade that we should work to regain?
Or even Alice's comment about
Yeah,
how do we get back to normal after the pandemic?
That's a different question. That is quite different, actually. One is to do with the immediate, and one is later. Look, to deal with in the last decade, I think what we have suffered, and this is not something I expect people to agree with me, but I think what we have suffered or endured or have had to endure is that we've become a far more regulated society. And I'm talking about an SCA society. And even though many of those rules and laws are appropriate, and I have very few concerns in that regard, just to know that they exist sometimes does make it feel that that it might be all just too much work for some. That's one aspect. What we need to do to regain, and I'm looking at this question rather carefully, what we need to do, I'm going to expand it out a little bit, is that we need to engage younger people who've just come out of university, who are in their 20s. We need to make sure it's a type of society, a type of organization or game that really appeals to them. Anyone who knows me a little bit will realize I am slightly competitive. And I do see other clubs, I suppose, drawing in those members that we would have traditionally have taken in the past. This is one thing, this has always been one thing about I've always been part of, and that is doing demonstrations, demos to the public and trying to draw in as many people as we can and making it look like it's a lot of fun, and it is a lot of fun. So in a nutshell, Beatrice and I have spoken about this for quite a while, but in a nutshell, we want to make sure that we're not overburdened by regulation, but two, we need more people. We need definitely more people to be involved in doing demos, demonstrations, attracting people to the society, and then building up a structure or a network that supports those people to choose whichever path they want to do in the society. It doesn't matter if it's heavy or rapier or brewing or costuming or just simply sitting around a fire and telling a good story. All people are welcome. We need that support, and we need to make sure that we understand that as much as that we receive from the SCA, we also should be giving back, okay, to the society, to Lochac, to your barony, to your shire, to that individual who's just walked through the door and sort of going, what is all this? It looks great. I hope that answers that question. Rookin? Yeah.
Rivkin.
Yep. As for the other question, I think that's more of a Beatrice type of question. What do we have to do to get back to normal? Well, I'll tell you what, that without stepping into federal politics in Australia, I think we have to wait until everything is back to normal in mundane life before we can truly move on to that step after the pandemic. But look, supporting each other, of course, is going to be a big part of it. When we do have those new people, supporting those new people to do as much as we can. I know the effects that we endure here in Sydney and Melbourne or Rony or Craiglass or Stormhold is quite different to that of Anyala or even St. Flo's or Riverhaven or Inalgard or Innisfail or also our cousins off in New Zealand. Yeah. But this is why we have Beatrice. Yes. Hang on.
Thanks,
So
Alfar.
that's all right. I think it's still your job, but no, I've just realised I've made a mistake. We have a new. You're not Lochac Initial anymore. There you are. I just clicked on.
am.
Okay.
Uh, Duchess England has been acting for me while I've been
Okay.
off traveling around with work.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Wait.
We're both looking at our list going, oh, what else can we ask you? So much I think we could ask you. But yeah, Bean, please.
You've been in for a long time, and I know you love to tell stories. What would be one of your favourite stories to tell?
Sure. Does it have to strictly stay within an SEA context? I'll assume that was a yes. Or maybe a no. Oh, I'll take it. Look,
apparently my shaking my head is that
no,
means
you're freezing on the screen sometimes in front of me.
Ah, yay.
Okay. I tell you what, there's one thing that the society does is that it develops value. It has a set of values and virtues. We often try to inspire the best in people, and we inspire them to do good deeds in particular, be it from someone who's struggling to carry a load to their campsite during the beginning of an event, to helping in the kitchen to clean up after an event. It also involves if someone is in need, that there should be someone there to help them. It can cover many different things. But many years ago, I think it was, many years ago when Duke Berengar was still in Sydney, Roni, I should say. We were at a fighter practice one night and just doing our thing, hitting each other, as it were, with a group of other people. And then one night, a girl, I don't know, maybe she was about 20, who basically came in with her friend who was of equal age. They were not SCA, and they basically pleaded for our help. Okay. And one thing that was clear to myself and to Berengar listening on was that she was quite genuine, and she was also quite desperate. And we listened to her story, and what she asked us to do was to simply, if someone could give her a lift to her place, which wasn't very far away, and help her get her things, and also persuade her abusive boyfriend at the time, who was a drug addict, maybe even the local dealer, to basically allow her to collect her things so she could then get a taxi and basically leave. Me and Berengar went, sure, no problems. So we put our helmets down and we put our swords down, but we left our entire kit on, and we jumped in the car with her and her friend, and we drove to this particular place. We didn't even think about this. We just did it. We went to the house. We got out and we asked, is this the place? And she goes, yes. What's his name? We go, okay. Bill or something. So me and Berengar basically knocked on the door. And this guy who, to be honest, looked like he had too many cones that day or that night. And we said, Bill, you have your ex-girlfriend who would like her things back. Can she have them back? And he goes, who the hell are you? And I said, I don't think you're in a position to ask that question. Can she simply have those things back? And then he looked at us carefully. And then he noted Berengar with his steel breastplate, me, my full kit as well. We're fully armored up. Fully armored up. Even though I'm a bit of a shorty compared to Berengar, we were quite imposing figures. And he just basically capitulated in front and said, yes, not a problem, not a problem. And he stepped back. His ex-girlfriend went in, took her things, grabbed her things with her friend, and we basically thanked him for his kind deed for allowing his ex-girlfriend to collect his things, or her things, and basically leave. And then we shut the door. We went down to the street level. Then she realized she didn't have any money. So Berengar basically popped out a 50, maybe more, dollars out, and said, look, I'll pay for a taxi and here's $50. Go where you need to go and be safe. And that was it. Now, me and Berger thought later about it, when probably going full kit wasn't probably the smartest thing, but it worked. And months later, that same girl with her friend came by and offered her sincerest thank you to both myself and to Berenger, gave him back his $50, and basically told us that we had, I don't know, saved her life. Now, I don't know how true this is or not, okay? There's no way for me to verify it exactly. But I thought to myself, maybe only people who are in the SEA who sort of caught up in that code of honor, if you like, chivalry. Maybe some people as stupid as me and Berenger would go out and save a damsel in distress, because that's how I suppose we translated it in our heads. We went off and helped someone in our full kit, like the knights of old. That's how I like to look at it. Maybe the police might see it differently, I don't know. But we never touched him, let me just stress that. We didn't have to anyway.
It's all right. Well, you had the armor on, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's an impressive wall.
Those type of things just reminded me again of the values that we instill in people within the society. I have seen some seriously good shit in terms of of manners, deeds done for other people by people within the society. I remember sitting once at a Penzic party called Vlad's. A person had broken his arm or something like that through a war. He had no medical insurance, and anyone who's in the US knows about the US. Medical insurance is expensive, and going to hospital is expensive. And in that party, they came up with some sort of auction, and they raised several $1,000s, bang, straight away. And they gave it to the fellow so he could go to hospital and get his arm mended. That just happened in one night. And I know that type of thing, in one shape or another, happens across the society, across the known world. Not just to Lochac, not to just a Penzic event, but I'm pretty sure it happens everywhere. And I think that is the shining aspect of the society, is that, and it separates us from other groups. We're not just there to hit people. We're not there just simply to make things, but we're there to inspire honourable thoughts and deeds. I hope that helps answer the question. I suspect I went off track a little bit.
No, I think it leads quite well back into Alice's question that she asked about how we move forward to a sense of normality after the pandemic, because we are living in an online world really at the moment, particularly across the society, and missing out on those face-to-face interactions. And when we do see each other in person, it shows that sense of those codes, the code and the values and virtues that you're speaking of, which we don't always see in an online forum.
No. So I'm sure there are means, and they can be sort of done within an online forum. But yeah, when we all come back, as I said, think about what you can do, I suppose. By doing something, you are contributing, and you're making generally someone else's, not just someone, but many other people's lives simply better. And if you get it wrong, this is the attitude I've taken, if you get it wrong, and you know you got it wrong, and you set out to improve, that's okay. Do it again. Just take whatever feedback was offered to you, and then set out to make it better. And I say that out of experience. I mean, coronets were a learning process. As I said, the first one wasn't spectacular, and I just learned from the first, second, third, fourth, and so on to make it better. And that's a journey that never ends. It's like when people achieve a peerage, be it a knight or a master or a laurel or a pelican. The journey doesn't end when you get the accolade. The journey's just started again, to continue being the best in whatever you've been given the accolade in, but also being the best as you can as a person, I suppose. And as I said, in other groups similar to ours, I don't know if they do that. I don't think that's entrenched inside their own systems. And maybe some people who do those other things might disagree, but I have dabbled in all of those different things, and I think I can speak with some authority here.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately, we're coming up on the hour.
There was a question
One question, yes, by Yolanda. Having such a large household, has that allowed you to do more things than which you used to be able to do?
Yes, having a large household does make doing some things like the ancient Greek reign, for example, was achievable by the fact that there was a large household backing me up. And the other members of Attica who had been crowned also, I think, benefited from the fact that there had been a large household as well. It can be limiting sometimes too, because sometimes I still remember the days when I was just myself and maybe one or two squires, and we could just do whatever, right? There was no rules, but that's okay. Having a household, it gives you a lot of privileges, but it gives you a lot of responsibilities too, and then you just got to have to accept it is what it is in that regard. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom today.
Experience. We'll call it experience.
It has been really good to get to know you a bit better. Like the three of us have been for quite a long time, and definitely learned some more things about you in this last hour, particularly your backstory. So thank you so much for sharing that journey and sharing your stories with us.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for inviting me too.
Thank you, Alfar. Thank you, Countess B. And our behind the scenes lovely Yolanda, actually, I think, who is our behind the scenes person today. Thank you, Lochac and the Known World, for joining us. B, do you know who is up next?
I'm just having a look. So next week, we actually don't have any interviews next weekend. And a part of that is there is quite a lot of COVID impact across the Terra Rossa, which is the Australian shores of Lochac at the moment, with quite a lot of lockdowns happening. So we are going to take a weekend off next week. But the following weekend, we have Mistress Rowan, who many of you may know as the founder of the SCA in Lochac, and she brought the SCA across to us. So that interview will be happening on Saturday, the 31st of July. So thank you everybody for joining us today. And we hope that you stay safe, stay sane, and take care of each other.
Thank you.